Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today you'll learn how to create Anki decks super fast. If you're an absolute beginner, don't worry. I'll take things step by step so that you don't need another video to explain mine to you. Now, before we get started, make sure you've already downloaded Anki to your computer. If you haven't, just use the link in the description below and get it installed. Next, you're going to need a spreadsheet program, and personally I love using Excel, but I know some of you are on a budget, so we'll use Google Sheets for this tutorial. It's totally free, and I'll leave a link in the description for you. As you can see, I already have the Google Sheets website open on my screen, and I'm using the Google Chrome browser, which I do recommend for this tutorial. To use Google Sheets, you will need a Gmail account. If you already have a YouTube account, chances are you already have a Gmail account. If you have a Gmail email address, you definitely have a Gmail account. If you don't, no worries, click on Sign Up for Free and sign up. But I won't go through the whole signing up process here. Once you do have your Gmail account set up, go ahead and sign in, and boom, we're all set to get started. I'm already signed in, so let's click on Go to Sheets. We'll click on the plus in the upper left to create a new blank page. Before you create your spreadsheet, you need to be clear about what categories of information you want on your card. What do I mean by that? Well, take a look at the Anki flashcard on my screen. This card has 4 categories of information. First is Chinese. Beneath that is Pinyin. Pinyin is a way that English people can read Chinese characters. Next, we see our third category, which is the English translation of the word, and finally a play button for the sound. If you're studying a language, this setup may work for you. If you're a medical student, though, you'll probably have a bit more than 4 categories of information. The point I'm trying to make here is start with a clear picture of all the categories you want your cards to contain. Now back on our spreadsheet, we'll need a column for each category of information we want to appear on our cards. I'm going to base my categories on the card I showed you moments ago. Remember, the first category was Chinese, so I'll type Chinese in the first column of my spreadsheet. Click on Tab to move to the second column and type in your second category. Mine was Pinyin. I'm going to continue until I have all my categories created. Now you'll want to decide whether or not you'll use tags on your cards. Tags allow you to organize cards into groups, and each card can have multiple tags. If you're into social media, think of it a bit like a hashtag. Why are tags useful? They allow you to filter your decks by tags so that you can focus on studying the cards one tag at a time. If you decide that you do want to use tags, go ahead and create another column in your spreadsheet entitled Tags. This seems like a good spot to address the question, how many categories can you have in Anki? Well, last time I checked, version 2.1.62 of Anki can handle up to 220 categories. With that said, I don't recommend having tons of categories for each deck. Having too many categories slows Anki down. I think it's better for you to separate your decks when the number of categories is getting out of control. But you can do a trial and error to see what works best for you. Now, you simply need to type the information for your cards into the spreadsheet, making sure that you place the correct information in each column. Now, to make this demonstration a little shorter, I'm going to cheat and paste some information into the spreadsheet. Now, although it's not necessary, you can move the columns and make them wider by clicking on the column and dragging it out. Now things look a bit neater. Although in this demo I only have 7 cards listed, you can add cards to your heart's content. Personally, I do have decks with 1,000 cards, and if I had to create those directly in Anki, it would be quite the chore. It's much quicker to type things into a spreadsheet. But with that said, many users on Reddit suggest having smaller decks. Apparently, large decks can affect Anki's algorithm negatively. But as I said earlier, you can experiment with your deck sizes to see what works for you. Once you're finished entering all your cards, click on the first cell of the spreadsheet. Then click on Edit, Delete, Row 1. Okay, now you're asking, Ashley, why did I type all that if I was just going to delete it? The header row was to help you keep track of what information goes where. In my example, I only have 5 columns here, but many people, like medical students for example, have way more categories in their cards, and things can get confusing if your columns aren't marked appropriately. Now we need to download our spreadsheet as a CSV file. Why? The CSV file format transforms our spreadsheet into data Anki can read. Before we do that though, let's talk to our Excel, Numbers, and LibreOffice users out there. If your cards contain a language that uses accents or special characters, you're going to need to save your spreadsheet in the CSV UTF-8 file format. This is necessary if you want your characters to display properly. Google Sheets handles this beautifully automatically, but if you're using another program such as Excel, make sure you choose the correct file format when saving. Here's what it looks like. After clicking on Save As, choose CSV UTF-8 from the File Format menu. Then click on Save. Now let's get back to you Google Sheets users. Let's click on File, Download, and then choose Comma Separated Values or CSV. And our document is downloaded. If you're enjoying this video, please hit that like button as it truly does help my channel, and consider sharing this video with your friends on your social media accounts. Thanks so much. Off screen, I opened Anki. The first thing we need to discuss are note types. Simply put, note types allow you to define what information your card will include. Let's set up a note type for the cards we just created in Google Sheets. In Anki, click on Tools up at the top, then Manage Note Types. Here, you see a few different note types, but if you just downloaded Anki, you'll have less options. In this video, we'll just discuss the first 2 on this list, Basic and Basic Reverse Card. The first one, Basic, refers to cards that have a question on the front and an answer on the back. Think about the old school flashcards of yesteryear. A basic card resembles those. So, if the cards you're creating are that basic, use this note type. The next option is Basic and Reversed Card. This is the option that I use most often. The main reason I like it is because it creates multiple cards for you from one set of information. Take a look at your screen to help you understand what I'm saying. I entered one set of information, and with it, Anki created 2 cards. The first one presents me with the Chinese so that I can guess the English, and the second one gives me the English so that I can recall the Chinese. Now let's create our note type by first duplicating the basic and reverse note type. Do this by clicking on Add, and then select Add Basic and Reverse Card. Then click OK. Now we need to name our new note type. I'm going to call mine Chinese Learning. And then click OK. Now we can see our new note type, Chinese Learning, in the list of note types. Off screen, I opened a screenshot of the headings we use to create our cards in Google Sheets. We can refer to it as we are customizing our note type. Let's click on the Chinese Learning note type we just created and then click on Fields. Here we can see that our note type has two fields, one called Front and the other Back. We need to change those to reflect the categories we used in our spreadsheet. So let's click on Front, click on Rename, and we'll call Front Chinese, since Chinese is the first category that appears on our spreadsheet. Then click OK. Next, we'll change Back to reflect the second category on our spreadsheet. Click on Rename, and the second category I used was Pinyin, so I'll rename it that and click on OK. In our spreadsheet, you'll remember that we also had columns for English and Sound. So let's add those. By clicking on Add, we'll create a field named English and click OK. We'll click on Add again and create one named Sound. Click OK again, and now we have English and Sound. Although we do have a tags column in our spreadsheet, we don't need to create a tag field. You'll understand why in just a moment. Once you're finished creating all of the fields for every category in your spreadsheet, click on Save down at the bottom. Now we can click on the red X in the upper left to exit note types. Now we're ready to import our flashcards to Anki. Let's start by clicking on Create Deck at the bottom, and we'll create a name for our new deck. I'll call mine Chinese Learning, and click OK. Next, click on Import File down at the bottom, and navigate to the CSV file you downloaded earlier from Google Sheets. If you used Google Chrome like I recommended, you'll be able to find this file in your Downloads folder. Once you find it, click on it and click Open. This window will appear. Up in the top right, you see the word semicolon. Let's change this by clicking on it, and from the drop-down menu, select comma. Now, if we look down under Import Options, we'll see that my note type is Chinese Learning, which is correct. But this doesn't always happen. Sometimes you need to click on the drop-down menu and select the correct note type. Once you've done that, click on the drop-down menu next to Deck and select the deck that you're uploading the cards to. Just beneath Deck, we see existing note types, and the choice of Update is correct as we're creating notes from scratch. Update would also be appropriate if you were adding new cards to an already existing deck. Next, let's take a look at field mapping to make sure everything looks okay. We can see that Chinese does have Chinese in the field, Pinyin does have Pinyin. My English definition is correct. Sound is empty, but take a look at tags. It says that nothing's there, but we know for sure that it is. So let's click on that drop-down menu, and there we can see number 5, people. If you remember, that corresponds to the 5th column in our spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and click on that. And we now see that all our columns from our spreadsheet are lining up correctly with our field mapping. Once everything looks good, click on Import up in the top right. And here we can see that Anki imported all of our cards successfully. Now we can click on Close. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our cards are appearing correctly. To do this, let's click on Browse up at the top. Then in the left menu, let's find the deck we're working on. Here it is, Chinese Learning. Let's click on it. And now we can see all our cards in the left pane. Remember earlier when we discussed Anki creating more than one card from the information we give it? Well, that's exactly what Anki did. If you look at the list of cards, you can see that there are cards number 1 and 2 for each bit of information we input. The first card is already selected. We know this because it's highlighted in blue. At the top of the right pane, let's click on Cards. To the left of the screen, we see the choices Front Template, Back Template, and Styling. Currently, Front Template is selected. If we look beneath that, we see Chinese. Remember, Chinese was the first column of our spreadsheet. If we look to the right of the screen, we can see a preview of how our cards currently look. Right now, only Chinese is showing. Now, that's not very helpful to me. I would like pinyin to also appear on the front of this card so that I can read the Chinese. To add it, I'll click on the Add field at the bottom and select pinyin. Then click OK. And now you can see the pinyin is appearing on the front of my card. Let's look at the back of the card now by clicking on Back Template up at the top. Well, the back of my card is giving me an additional set of pinyin. That's not very helpful. Let's delete it by selecting pinyin in the right window, and we want to select everything that is around it as well, from the beginning of this div style to the end. We'll select it and click delete on your keyboard. And now that extra set of pinyin is gone. Let's go ahead and add the English now. I'll click on Add Field, English, OK, and there's the English. Next, we need to determine where we want our sound to appear. Do you want it to play during the front view of your card or the back view? I think I'd like my audio to play when I first see the Chinese on the front of the card. So I'm going to click on Front Template to return there. And then I'm going to place my cursor at the end of that information in the left-sided pane. Click on Add Field, click on Sound, and then OK. Now, if you notice on the preview of the front of my card, the play button is not appearing. This is because we have not added sound yet. We're going to do that in part 2 of this series so that people that are just interested in that will have their own video. And this one won't get too long. For now, I just want to make sure that my sound is going to appear in the correct place. Now let's click on Back Template again. While we're here, I want to show you something. Let's pretend I'd like the words English definition to appear just above the definition on the card. If I place my cursor just above the division that contains English in the left pane, I can type whatever I'd like. In this case, I'm going to type English definition. You can type on either the front or the back of your cards in this manner, and it can be quite helpful if you have multiple pieces of information, and labels would help you in your learning process. At times, having different colors on your card may help as well. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to make a video on changing the colors and styling of your cards. Once your card looks good, you can click on Save at the bottom. Now, what we just did is going to change all of the cards labeled Card 1 in our deck. We don't have to fix each one. Next, let's check the cards labeled number 2 to see what's going on there. Select any card labeled 2 and then click on Cards in the right pane. Here we can see that only pinyin is showing on the front of my card, and that is not very helpful. Since card number 1 already has Chinese on the front, I think I'd like English to appear on card number 2. So I'll go ahead and select everything that contains the pinyin and delete it using my keyboard. Then I'm going to click on Add Field at the bottom, select English, and then OK. And now the English is on the front of my card. Let's go ahead and click on the back template now. And the Chinese is appearing, which is great, but it's lacking the pinyin. So let's put our cursor down at the bottom, click on Add Field, Select Pinion and hit OK. Now our pinion is showing. Let's go ahead and add the sound while we're here as well. Since I'd like it to appear where my Chinese appears, I'll click down at the bottom in that left pane, click on Add Field, Sound, OK. And once again, the sound isn't showing because we haven't done that just yet. We're just saving our place here. When we're finished, click Save down at the bottom. And that wraps things up for this video. If you want to learn how to put sound in the cards we just created, join me in part 2. I'll see you there. Bye for now.